Okay, we live. You just need to go in and share it out.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So, hey everyone. Welcome to Surviving the Shift. Because exactly, we should be saying that for real. We don't need a mantra for everything that's happening in the industry right now. It's not just affecting businesses, it's not just affecting individuals, it's not affecting just ethnic groups, it is affecting nonprofits as well. It's affecting us all across the board, whether it's we feel it or not yet, it's going to trickle down and affect each individual one of us. So today, Ty and I wanted to come on and we wanted to talk about surviving the shift as it relates to the greater community and nonprofits, because that's what nonprofits do, right? They work with the community, they help to fill the gaps when the government cannot. And there's a lot of gaps that's going to be needed to be filled by nonprofits in 2025 and beyond based on the nonsense that's happening. So go ahead, Ty.
Absolutely. All of that, right? Y'all have been, even before now, you could kind of see things change.
Shifting.
You can see things shifting. And with all administrations, stuff happens. I'm just gonna put that out there, right?
Yeah.
No matter what your organization is doing or what you're doing, when the seat changes, things change. Sometimes it's not in our favor, and this time it just doesn't seem to be in our favor. And when I say our, I'm talking about, like Tracy said, most of us. It doesn't seem to be, especially for nonprofit organizations who were formed to help the community, and a lot of that funding that we're seeing comes from federal agencies. A lot of that comes from corporations. A lot of that comes from state agencies. All that are going to be affected, if not yet, they will be by what's going on in this administration, and this makes nonprofits even more important.
It does.
For some of us, we start seeing stuff, Tracy. I know I did when we already knew it. Like we knew
it was coming.
We knew it, but then when
when
the news started saying, "Oh, this changed, that and that goes out and that is out," I got sad. Like last week, I was so sad. I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it's happening," even though I knew it was happening. Like I knew it was going to happen. Nonprofits especially still have a job, no matter how sad we are, no matter how depressed or angry we are. Those people we serve still need serving. If the government is not going to serve them, we still got to serve them.
Because that's your job. That's the job that you took on. You wanted to become a change maker. You wanted to be able to impact your community. You wanted to change the lives of your community. You wanted to transform things that are happening that cause generational trauma or cause unimaginable poverty or health issues within the community. You still have that job, and that job becomes even more important at this time. So if you're a nonprofit that was helping 100 people a year, you have thousands of people now that need the help. How are you going to mobilize to help those people and fulfill your own mission? Because that's what you're there for. You were telling me that someone called you today or yesterday asking you about writing a federal grant, but that's when you're not reading the room because there's no federal grants to be written.
We don't have none, right? And you're talking about mobilization, right? This is that time. Like, I don't know what y'all been doing. Like, I don't know what y'all been doing before now, but this is the sign. Okay, well, now we have to mobilize as a collective so that we can get this work done. No matter who's not gonna fund us, we gotta. Tracy, a long time ago, I had a saying: "Go fund yourself." Right?
Yes.
go fund yourself. Like this is what this is about, right here. So, even as hard as it may be, some of y'all are struggling nonprofit organizations already. You're already struggling, right? you want to look internally in your organization and figure out, hey, what's the struggle about? First of all, is the leadership bad? Do we just not know how to bring in revenue? The
Mhm.
same issues that you had before this administration, you're gonna have them after the administration if you don't straighten anything up. Waiting
Yeah.
for the government to give you $1 million isn't a problem. That's
Mhm.
a problem anyway.
Yeah.
People stay in our boxes asking for, can you write me a grant? That's a problem.
Mhm.
And usually they're not thinking outside of the grant. They're, hey, can I get a grant for this? Can I get a grant for that? Can I do? That's been the mindset of folk for a while, and that's what's cursed us, y'all.
Yes. Yeah.
That's because we were so dependent upon those things, so that when somebody comes in and ruffles, the waters a little bit, now we're scared and we're terrified and we're like, oh my God, now how am I gonna provide food for the people I serve? Well, if you would have been funding yourself up until this point, you would.
Mhm.
And I don't want to fuss at people like that, Tracy, but that's
No, but
what.
what I don't want people to take away from this is we're not saying because there are going to be more people that are going to be in need of your services that we need more nonprofits. That's not what we need, right? We
Girl.
have millions
Hey.
of millions of nonprofits throughout the United States. What we need is for those nonprofits to mobilize and start working together collaboratively, joining forces so that you can make a greater impact. Because for every city or town that we can think about, there are probably at least 3 or 4 nonprofits doing the same thing, serving the same demographic of people. And we always talk about not doing that because you water down your funding pool and you're not as effective as you could be if you join forces. Even if you want to keep your own nonprofit, that's fine. But to work together for funding, for whatever it is that you need to monetarily to run your nonprofits and to help your community, you are going to have to come together as a collective to make sure that you're making impact. If you're truly about helping people, that is what you will do. And you won't even think you have a second thought about it because it is the only way to move forward at this point in time.
And there's a
Okay.
collective impact model for that kind of work, right?
There is.
I start to think about change theories and think about models
Mhm,
and how you can get together as a community. Because, like I was saying, there may be 500 food banks in your city.
mhm,
Every corner, somebody giving out food, right? What happens now when the administration says we couldn't fund it for that kind of stuff? We're not going to be
mhm,
just giving y'all this food for these people to be get. What are you doing now? Well, I'm going to have to get with these other 50 that already exist and see how can we get together and still serve the purpose, still the impact, be able to effectively communicate the impact and figure out, is this something that we got to walk out? Is this something that we have to advocate for? Advocacy is
mhm.
also going to be on the rise,
Yes.
right now, but people
Mhm.
don't know how to do it.
No, because there's an art to doing it to make sure that everybody is able to report their impact, like you said, and to be able to generate funds and to make sure that they're helping the community as effectively as possible. Sometimes collaboration can become chaotic, and you need help making sure that those collaborative and partnerships are not chaotic, because when they are chaotic, it's just a bunch of backbiting and it does not serve your community at
Mhm,
all, right? You're
mhm,
doing more harm to the community than you are doing what good. So you
mhm,
need to understand the models that go along with that. But I
mhm,
kind of just want to talk about some of the things that are happening and how it affects nonprofits. So if
mhm,
you don't know, today the at 5 o'clock, the federal financial aid program is going to be rolling back. So basically all federal funds will cease to be disbursed at 5 p.m. today, Tuesday, January 25th. So that includes 27th, sorry, 28th.
yeah,
28th. This
I
month
got
has
to look
gone by
on the computer and
so
see what
quickly.
it is because I'm
I
it's,
know,
uh,
right? So that includes Pell Grants, direct loans, grants, graduate plus loans, and parent plus loans. No monies are going out. So spring semester is coming up soon. You got to figure out how you're going to stay in college past spring if you have these types of loans, right? Um, This disbursement also affects Medicaid, school breakfast and lunch programs, Section 8 assistance, Title 1 education. That's most public schools.
Mhm.
Let's be clear. That's most public schools. Section 8, that's people's housing. And in most states now, it's illegal to be unhoused, right? Breakfast and lunch, we already know that most kids only eat at school, okay? Especially if they live in a food desert, right? Medicaid, that's people going to the doctor, people getting their medications. Like, this is serious impact,
Mhm.
okay? Temporary assistance for needy families, so that's food stamps and whatever else you will get, right? Grants for childcare, right? So if you can't pay for your childcare, then how are you going to go to work? Who's going to take care of the child? Because most grandparents are working. Most people have to work in order to survive today. Head Start, those are the toddlers, right? And then WIC. Do you know how much of America relies on WIC for the food that they need?
Wow.
Right? So all of these areas are areas that are going to be impacted, and all of these areas are areas that nonprofits are going to have to fill. That's how nonprofits became a thing. In case you guys don't know the history of nonprofits, that's how it started. There were areas that the government just, it was just too many people needed help. And the government just could not employ the amount of people needed to serve the community. So they decided, hey, there are people in the community who can actually do the work. So let's start a program called nonprofits
Mhm.
and let them be
Do
the
the work.
ones who go out and do the work, right? So imagine all of those areas that I'm talking about. I said Title One grants. That's most public schools, especially if the public school is in an undesirable area, right?
Mhm.
So we're talking about hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people who all of a sudden are going to be flooding nonprofits to get services. And one of the things that Tina always say is that you have to stay ready, right? Because you just don't know. And I
Mhm.
don't think that most nonprofits are in are at the capacity where they can help.
Yeah, and I think a lot of nonprofits got comfortable, even if they didn't get the kind of funding that they wanted to get,
Mhm,
they were kind of comfortable thinking that it's okay. If
mhm.
I ask enough people, if the government feels sorry for me, we're gonna be able to do this thing,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm,
everything that you just listed there's a nonprofit program somewhere that
mhm.
that directly feeds those things.
Yes.
You're saying, okay, well, if we're talking about medication, we have nonprofits that take elderly people to go pick up their medicines or help
Mhm,
them some type of supplement to help them get whatever it is that they have
mhm.
going on. So you still have to do it though. That's the
Mhm,
thing. Even though the funding is cut for it, you
mhm,
still got to do this thing. So how are you going to do it? Where are you going to get the funding from? Where are you going to get the funding from to get it done?
mhm.
Still got to do the work.
Right, and that's one of the things that I talk about all the time, and I've been talking about it, and I have had a lot of resistance towards it, is multiple streams of income for nonprofit organizations, and a lot of nonprofits turning to a hybrid nonprofit model, which is a type of social enterprise, and a
Mhm.
lot of them just could not wrap their minds around what I was saying because they're like, "Oh, but I mean, I've seen people got physically upset with me,
Yeah.
grumbling, mumbling, like
Like,
it's
why? Why you telling me to do that? Why I gotta do this?
yeah, very aggressive when I start talking about that model. And one of the reasons I started talking about that model so much is because I saw this coming down the pipeline. People got overly comfortable during the pandemic because money was a flowing.
That
Okay.
that one. And I
Yes,
talk about COVID monies all the time.
right.
Wait, that was a trick.
It was a
Oh.
trick to make people feel overly comfortable. And
Mhm.
I said, this is just a bubble that we're in, and this bubble is going to break. And when it does, it's going to be disastrous because it's going to go from here to rock bottom in
Yep,
2.2 seconds. And
yep,
that is what's happening now.
yep.
Okay. And this is not to fearmonger, this is to mobilize you to get to, for you to think about your nonprofit organization differently. Sit down, talk with your board, talk with your staff, your advisory board. How are you going to move forward and make an impact? How are you going to get money? Because, like we said earlier, you cannot apply for any federal grants. There's no money to give you. It's done. For at least right now, it is done.
Yeah.
So you still have bills to pay. How are you going to pay those bills? How are you going to get the provide the services that you do to the community? There are lots of different ways to do it. Most people only think about the one way. I got my determination letter from the IRS, grants, right? Free
Right.
money, free money. You hear people say that all the time, free money. There's nothing free. Nothing
No,
is free.
nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So, how are we going to move forward? And that's what Ty and I want to do. We're going to have a series that we're going to go through the main components that most, like the main industries in a nonprofit. So, healthcare, education, human resources, the arts and music. Am I forgetting anyone, Ty?
Um,
I think those are the top ones:
yeah.
education, health, um, human
Education,
human
human service.
resources.
Uh,
Hmm.
there's still some veterans that are affected
Yeah. Yeah.
by
Yeah.
this. We didn't even like people didn't even think that was gonna happen. Like we're not
Right.
veterans alone, but
Mhm.
what do you do? You
Yeah.
know, so bringing those kind of programs. This is a perfect time for.
And even in this storm,
Hmm.
you can still keep your nonprofit alive. There are lots of different strategies, and that's what we want to be able to teach you, the strategies to keep your nonprofit alive. And when you talked about veterans, we didn't even talk about DEI.
Yeah, you talk about
We
that,
didn't even talk about DEI yet.
and that's everybody. It's crazy to me how people think that DEI is just for Black folk. Okay,
Yes.
Black folk.
Yes.
DE.
Common misconception.
This is so encompassing. I'm talking
Mhm.
about everybody on some
Mhm.
level benefited from.
And DEI.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And again, this is no reason to be depressed about it or anything. I know for some
Mhm.
folks, this is a really, sad situation, right?
Yeah.
But you have to figure out how to overcome it, how to survive it, like we're talking about now, survive,
Mhm.
because there are things that you still can do. We've always done like
Mhm.
people who have been on the receiving end of DEI are certain people with certain strengths that folk don't even realize, right? There are things that we have overcome and achieved with much less than they gave us, But really, but we have to get into that mindset again. We got lazy
Mhm.
and we got overly dependent. And you just mentioned COVID, and COVID ruined a lot of us, gave us a lot of money, but
Mhm.
today, a year or two out of COVID, folk don't even know what they did with the money that COVID gave you. So
Mhm.
what kind of impact did you make then? And now we're coming to administration who was saying we don't see the impact. We don't see the positive impact from all this. So we think we're wasting money on this. This is what it
Mhm.
is. We think we're wasting money because you're not able to communicate the big difference that you made. We gave you money for after school programs, but the entire state is still got failing schools in it. What did you do? Now is the time to prove your point. Now is the time to
Yes.
prove it. Now is the time to get together, stop being so territorial because that we have a tendency to do that. We're like, oh,
Mhm.
over a couple dollars and this is my nonprofit. I don't want to work with that nonprofit. I can't do that. I can't go over here and work with that business. And you talked about, hybrid models and things like that. Folk
Mhm.
they get so narrow in one lane and territorial, and they don't want to. I don't want to share my resources. I don't care if they come, and nobody has anything. Everybody's suffering. Have a community meeting. Get out in your community and say, hey, this is what I do. What do y'all do? We need to have a meeting next Friday, and we need to pull together to see how we can make an impact collectively so that we can serve these people that we still got to serve, no matter what is rolled back or cut. How
Mhm.
my daughter gonna go to school? I'm glad my daughter finishes in May. Praise the Lord. She got to go to medical school. We got to now. We just gonna have to figure that out anyway. So,
Yeah.
that's okay. We good. But I was telling my mom, a lot of she went to school debt free. A lot
Mhm.
of these scholarships and they were minority scholarships.
Based
They were
scholarships, right.
a black girl in engineering.
Mhm, mhm,
Got
mhm,
money for her to go to, and she went to a PWI, right? That was
mhm,
money for you to go there because you're a little black girl.
mhm,
There, that may not be there for my son,
mhm,
you know, right? But what do I do? You know, I had to
mhm.
go find myself. I already knew that, you know.
Go fund yourself, yep.
But what about
Mhm.
your organization that does the same thing, that helps
Yes.
kids go to college or that whatever? What are y'all gonna do as a community? So the program that Tracy and I have will help you to figure that out. First of all, this is
Mhm.
time to do some evaluations, some internal assessments. You know, like I talk about SWOT all the time, Tracy. I'm like, SWOT, that's like hot sauce. Put that on everything, right?
Exactly. I swap myself on a regular basis, so
Okay, we was like, look, okay,
yeah.
let me see where the opportunity is for us to combat this threat, right?
Yeah,
Let me
right.
see what that is. So understanding how to do that and how to build up your communities in a way that this does not take you out, because we're not telling you to, shut up shop or
No,
anything. We're telling
absolutely not. We want you to stay open. You need to stay open because there are going to be so many people who are going to need what you do
you.
in order to survive. Mental health crises are going to be at an all-time high. There are people who are literally let's think back even to a week, 2 weeks ago with the whole TikTok thing.
Yeah, was
I
like,
could not believe the amount of people that were crying. I understood it, but like openly boohoo crying on the internet. Then you compound this with it. You're talking. You thought that COVID was bad, where people just kind of like just checked out mentally. Oh, they're about to check all
yeah,
the way out. So all of these services that you provide as a nonprofit organization is going to be essential to the mental health of our community.
mhm,
Okay. And when I say not just the mental health services, all the services, because if you don't have good mental health, nothing else works, you know?
mhm,
So making sure that you're there to provide all these advocacy programs, mentorship programs, all the life coaches and stuff. Oh, and that's a component we didn't talk about. I talk about hybrid nonprofits, but what I also want to talk about is social enterprises, right? These for-profit businesses, you need to come up with a social enterprise model within your for-profit business to help your community. You
mhm,
can't just want to collect money and don't do anything in exchange for your community. You should be working with nonprofit organizations, volunteering. I mean, yes, we all have to think about ourselves. We're selfish beings to begin with, but we also have to think about the community because no, even if it doesn't affect you directly, indirectly, it will affect you no matter what. If more homeless people are there, you live in the suburbs, they're going to start moving in there too.
mhm,
So like, listen, you just have to we have to come together as a community
mhm.
to make sure that we survive this shift, right? Because that's what it's about, surviving the shift. And we need to make sure that we're doing what is necessary to survive this shift. And this was not just in play in the second term. So let me read, because I took a lot of notes. I have notes. I'm going to put them in our group. We have a group called Surviving the Shift on Facebook.
To the group.
Please
Go over there.
go in the group and join the group because I'm going to put a lot of this stuff that I've taken notes on. I got like 5 pages of notes here, right? In,
Mhm,
tw- in 2021. That's when he first put the budget in place. So he proposed a budget of $1.6 trillion. True, not not but
yeah.
trillion dollars in cuts over a 10-year period for
Yep.
program assisting low income individuals. It is just fast tracked right
Mhm,
now. But
mhm,
this was something, if he had gotten that next 4 years, that he
mhm,
had already in play to cut
mhm.
1.6. Do you know how much money that is? Do you know how much people are going to be affected by that?
And
So
it's not a
again, we're
surprise.
not here to make you fearful. We're here to educate you because the more you know, you can be prepared.
Right. Don't be scared. Be prepared.
Yeah, be
It's not
prepared.
said the previous term in office, this is what was going to happen. Like if
Mhm.
you have to pay attention. We cannot get to a where we're thinking, okay, everything is cool. I'm not saying you have to be always, in fight or flight mode, but you have to
No.
pay attention so that you could watch the trends. You can watch the trend. I talk about when I worked, years ago when I worked in HIV prevention.
Mhm.
When HIV first came on the scene, it was a big push to, motor transmission, educate people about that so they don't contract the virus. Do that, that was the thing. And then, Magic Johnson was like, okay, I'm HIV positive, and there's this medicine that you can take that could, decrease your symptoms. And after a while, they were like, you can have low viral loads, and you can do all this stuff.
Mhm.
And then folks are saying, you know what, we need to educate people about taking their medicines,
Mhm.
educate people about going to the doctor. So this prevention thing, even though it was important, funding for prevention kind of dried up because you know what? If you don't prevent it, at least you go to the doctor and you do this. So what do we do when our funding focus change? We change as well.
Right.
We're still educating because that's what our mission was, to educate.
Mhm.
But now instead of educating about prevention, maybe we need to educate about compliance with the doctor, right?
Right.
We're going to go. So think about those kind of things as you bring your organizations together, because
Mhm.
even when you step outside of government funding and you try to look to corporations and you try to look to foundations and you try to look to communities, there's still going to be a certain set of rules that they're going to have to follow,
Mhm.
right? So if you can't figure out, like Tracy said, to diversify with these almost endless ways you can bring money into your organization, if you know what you're doing and you know how to do it,
Mhm.
limited in your ways to do that, you have to learn what's acceptable, where the funding trends are, and how does that fit into your mission without making you a sellout. Like
Right.
how does it
Right.
mission drifting, but how does it fit into my mission without making me a sellout?
Mhm.
I want to stay true to my community. My
Mhm.
community is where I serve. So I'm not going to sell out my community for whatever $3 y'all give me.
Mhm.
Advocate for their rights. I'm going to advocate for whatever, but I'm going to figure out how to fund my mission, regardless of who is in office. Because, like you said when we first got on this call, that's your job.
Right.
That's what you said you
That's
were
what you signed up for.
a founder, or whether you were hired into
Mhm.
a position to do this. That's what you signed up to do.
Mhm.
Do it.
And we signed up to educate you and make sure that your nonprofit is in the best position to
Educate,
impact your community. And that's why we're here today, to let you know that we are here to support you. Um, and that regardless to whatever is happening, that you can still make it work. Okay, you can still make it work. Back in it was last year, HR 9495 was passed. Okay. And it's the Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act. You know how they like to wrap things up in other bills? Well, they wrapped up some stuff for nonprofits
Mhm.
in this bill. So I'm going to tell you how that affects you. And like I said, if you join the group Shifting, Surviving the Shift on Facebook, it's a Facebook group. Sign up to join it. Then you will get all of the stuff in there as well. So nonprofits could lose their 501c3 status, which would have severe financial consequences, of course, on donor implication, because they're talking about revoking of the tax exemption status. So the bill empowers the Secretary of State to revoke tax exempt status on any nonprofit organization found to be materially supporting dis um, designed terrorist groups. So whatever they determine is a terrorist, not what you think a terrorist group is. So if you are the founder of a nonprofit organization and you come out here and you like spouting off at the mouth about Donald Trump and you're getting traction on that, whoop, terrorist group, nonprofit status
That's
gone.
terrorist because you're kicking against
Right?
it. If you say something against me, you're a terrorist already.
Yeah, you're a domestic terrorist.
You're pulling that.
So it affects everybody,
Mm-hmm.
okay? All nonprofits, because all someone has to do, if I'm not mistaken, when I have the notes, but is make a complaint. That's all. They have to just make a complaint. and you can end up losing your tax exempt status, right? So donor implications, of course, if you don't have your tax exempt status and that's what you've been getting all your donors on and that's what they're expecting, you can lose that. Tax liability, right? So you've gone from a tax exempt status to now having to pay taxes. And of course, reputational damage. And this was passed. There's a whole bunch of other stuff, broad scope implications and outreach. We have unintentional violations. Remember, I just talked about the unintentional violations. You may not think you're doing anything wrong, but you upset the wrong person and you are in trouble. So there's an increased administrative burden. So a lot of complaints can come in, and when they have too much work to do, guess what? They're just going to be like, "Oop, all right, you're
Yeah.
out."
Which is why your social impact hybrid model, which is
Uh-huh.
why also that's
Yes.
very important, right? Because
Yes.
if you are a 501c3 tax exempt organization, you whatever government tells you to do, that's what you got to do. Like
Yeah.
that's what like if they say if this is what it is, that's what it is. If they're saying, hey, you can't do anything that's related to DEI, we're going by this merit-based thing, you already
Mhm.
the whole organization talking about I serve people of color. You already messed
Mhm.
up.
Yes.
That's it. I
Yes.
serve
And
people.
that is why I've been trying so hard to get nonprofits to understand you need to be a hybrid nonprofit. You must, to survive in 2025 and beyond, you
Mhm.
need to become a hybrid nonprofit. And if that is too much for you, then you just need to become a social enterprise. But the whole full nonprofit thing, starting off, especially if you're not already at millions of dollars in funding yearly, like you are not at like 2.5, I think that would be the safe space for me. 2.5 million. If you haven't been doing that consistently for the last couple of years with a diversified revenue pool, not from a grant, right?
Mhm.
You need to become a hybrid nonprofit.
And multiple brands is not diversified, y'all. Like
Mhm.
multiple brands is not
That's
diversified.
not diversification, no.
You just getting grants from a bunch of people. Somebody asked me that
Yeah.
yesterday. It was like
Oh,
they were
really?
yeah, and then they had like, or somebody was it was talking about they weren't talking about grants. They was talking about corporations. It was like I got three corporations that sponsor me. Whatever.
Mhm.
Diversified? No, because that's corporate support. That's one stream, right? You want to make sure that you have your mix is big enough that if one
Mhm.
of those things happen to be pulled away, you still get to function. And
Mhm.
this is why everybody's panicking right now. Everybody's
Yes.
panicking because okay, I've been relying on this set of grants from whoever, or Walmart didn't want to do DEI anymore, or whatever.
Oh,
And
talk about Walmart. Let's talk about Walmart and Target.
I'm
Some of
making
us, so everybody floods Ty on a regular basis about this Walmart grant. Everybody wants a Walmart grant because Walmart is one of the easier places to get a grant from, 500 to 2500, right? And so they're always on her about these Walmart grants because she's the Walmart grant queen. I'm assuming because the way they flood her with questions about Walmart grants. My goodness, I have dubbed her the Walmart grant queen. So Walmart did some changes to their grant application like late last year. She had to do several workshops on how to get this Walmart grant. Because again, it's one of the easiest grant. But Walmart just said what? They're rolling back their DEI initiatives. Do you think that's not going to affect those grants that you've been getting?
yes, sir, they will.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir, they will. Right. And
Hmm.
the thing is, Walmart or Target or nobody had to give you anything, right? But they decided to, probably because they were made to with some
Hmm.
EI initiative or whatever.
Hmm.
But you got so comfortable. I had people getting
Hmm.
13, 14 Walmart grants funded, you know, and that's all they were operating off of. That's your fault.
Oh,
Because
wow.
you want to diversify. Why would you put
Hmm.
all your eggs in Walmart? They don't even have eggs on the shelf. Oh, like why would you do that? It does not make sense to do that and then get angry at Walmart when they're not funding and they're not doing it because they didn't have to in the first place. That's what it is. And
Right.
and it's with this DEI to merit. I can't remember the merit system or whatever they're moving. They're saying is what it is.
Hmm.
What against what standard is this merit measured?
Right.
What like who like what like who determines the merit based eligibility? If they're saying we're not doing DEI, it's going to be a merit based thing. If you're applying for funding, or if your organization says, now we're moving to merit based,
Mhm.
what determines the merit?
The
Is it
standard that they set.
the standard that they set, right?
Yeah,
If
the
you are
standard that they set.
a traditional nonprofit, whatever that standard is, that's
Mhm.
the standard that you have to follow.
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
That's what you have to follow. This is why hybrid models and things like that should be where you're looking at right now,
Mhm.
because there are going to be things that you're going to have to uphold that you may not want to uh,
Right.
in your nonprofit, but the government approved your nonprofit, so you had to
Mhm.
apply through a government system to get your 501c3 approval. So whatever those rules are, you're going to have to abide by those rules, and that's just whether you like it or not.
Yeah. And, just to make this clear, when we talk about DEI, again, DEI doesn't just mean Black folks. It is women. As a matter of fact, with DEI initiatives, white women tend to benefit from it most than any other
Yep.
a category of people who fit into the DEI category. So DEI also covered veterans. It also covered persons with disabilities, um, and other ethnic groups as well. Right?
Mhm.
It's a plethora. It's like a cornucopia of different things that DEI covered. But for whatever reason, DEI replaced.
Affirmative action.
Thank you. DEI seemed to have replaced affirmative action in people's minds and thinking that affirmative action only covered and affirmative action didn't only cover Black people either. That's the thing right there.
Right.
It didn't only cover Black people either, but
Yep.
that is a conception that people have in their minds. It
Mhm.
a lot of people are going to be affected by this. And
Mhm.
again, white women were the highest recipients of DEI and affirmative action
Mhm. And low
recipients of
income
those
in
things,
general, like how many low
initiatives.
income individuals benefited from DEI just because they
Mhm.
were low income? Okay, maybe
Yes.
I couldn't stay in this neighborhood and get this housing because I didn't meet the income, but
Mhm.
because of DEI, they said, you know what? If you make this amount, we can still let you live over here, and you can do
Right.
this. Yep. People not understanding.
Mhm.
You got people, you got Habitat for Humanity.
Yes.
You got programs like that that are
Mhm.
going to be affected
That are
by,
gonna go away.
yeah,
They're going to go away. So here's some of the companies in case you don't know, and a lot of these companies, and Ty, you can tell me which ones are not, but I think all of them do offer grants to
yeah.
nonprofits.
Most of them have corporate
Target, Walmart, Meta, and Meta was offering grants even to um,
businesses before.
groups it
Yep.
on Facebook groups that were minority based Facebook groups.
Mhm.
McDonald's, Amazon, Lowe's, Harley Davidson, Boeing, John Deere, and Disney. All of these companies at some point in time, if I'm not mistaken, have offered grants to
Ford.
nonprofits.
Yep. All
Okay.
those.
And that is going to be a thing of the past. So we need to figure out how we're going to come together as a community, nonprofit community, right? Collaborate, build partnerships, and become stronger so that you can continue to serve the people that you are. Again, please go join our group. It's called Surviving the Shift. I'm going to be putting a lot of the stuff that we talked about here in the group. This video will also go into the group. You're able to ask questions and build a community as well in that group that will help you to elevate and scale your nonprofit with other nonprofits in and around your area or in your industry so that you can help the people who are going to be in detrimental situations by next week. And I'm not even saying by 2, 3 months from now, because
By five
if
o'clock.
we know right, if we know anything about the American economy, most people do not have 3 months worth of income to survive on because everything has just skyrocketed over the last 3, 4 years. So people have been living paycheck to paycheck already. And then now all of a sudden, without notice, your job is gone. The funding has ceased. And we're talking about people who have government contracts too.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, Black, white, Hispanic, you name it, Asian, do government contracting. Their check is not coming.
Mhm.
Those are hundreds of people that will not get, thousands of people that will not be getting it checked. Again, we're not saying this to scare you. We're saying this because we want you to understand the gravity of what's happening and the amount of people that are going to need the services that nonprofits provide. And we want you to be ready to help those people through this ordeal.
Yep, that's it. You're still needed. You know,
Mhm.
in my book, I talk about even if it's a zombie apocalypse, you still
Yeah.
who gonna
Yeah.
feed the zombies? We got to find some brains somewhere
Yeah.
because somebody still got to take care
Mm.
of the people. That's what
Yeah.
nonprofits were founded for.
Yes.
And no matter what's going on around us, we still got to do our work. Y'all still
Mhm.
got kids still hungry. Folks still need to read or whatever y'all are doing. It still needs to happen.
Mhm.
You don't just kind of curl up and die because of
Mhm.
what's going on with the administration. You figure it out, and
But
you
you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. You can't ad lib this. This is not going to work on an ad lib basis. There must be a solid strategic plan of action of how you are going to get from point A.
Mhm.
Probably ain't getting to point Z. Z is a far ways off, right? But
We
at least,
we're gonna go A to B to C, A to C.
right.
We progress, right?
Right.
Along this line of
Mhm.
where we're
But
trying
this
to
is not gonna be your 5-year strategic plan. This
right,
is going to be, how are we gonna get through Q2?
right. This is
Okay? And
crisis
then
management. We
2
can
months before Q2 is done, we say, "Okay, how are we gonna get through to Q4?" That's the kind of strategic plans that you're gonna have to build right now. It's not gonna be 3 to 5-year strategic plans. It's going to
yeah.
be shorter strategic plans because so much is going to change, and you're gonna have to be flexible and be willing to adjust so that
Mhm.
you can get to the finish
It's
line.
all process evaluation where we're
Mhm.
working this out, then we gotta stop. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that works. That doesn't work. Let's do
Mhm.
this. Let's
Mhm.
keep and that's the way you have to walk it out. So then you're not
Mhm.
so overwhelmed because this can also be overwhelming. You're like, oh,
Mhm.
this is a big problem. I
Yeah.
gotta fix this problem now. And sometimes now is not the best solution, but we have to work toward it. And if
Right.
we're not doing it by ourselves, so if we're coming together with our community,
Mhm.
we'll get more done. We're stronger together. Like
Mhm.
you get more done. Call
Yeah.
your get a community. You know they used to have like community town meeting, town hall
Yes.
stuff,
Some
and
ta Yeah,
you know
town hall meetings.
yeah,
Mhm.
and coalitions were built and all this. Doing
And
those
this is our version of a town hall meeting. So, yeah.
come on, listen, come on, you know,
Yeah.
bringing different people from different organizations in your community. This is not the time
Mhm.
to, to build a wall around yourself. Like, okay, what do you have to offer? What's your mission? Where
Right.
do our missions combine? What am
Mhm.
I doing in my mission that you're not doing in yours? How can we work together to create this umbrella for the community that we serve so they don't get
Right.
too wet?
Mhm. Yeah. So that's it for me. Um Again, go on over, join our group, Surviving the Shift. We're going to be putting a lot of information in there. You'll be able to interact with us, and so we can help you guys through this shift. Um, I don't know what else to say.
That's it. Y'all be ready. Don't be scared. Be prepared,
Yeah.
and come over to the group, and we'll help prepare you.
Mhm.
We got a program coming up that's going to be dig a lot deeper, helping you guys
Yes.
understand more.
Literally holding your hand through the
Yes,
process to make sure that you don't make any mistakes along the way, because this is not the time to make
we ain't got
mistakes.
time. We
And
ain't got time.
mistakes right now are going to be super costly. They're going to be more costly than whatever our program costs. It's going to cost you a lot of money making mistakes right now.
Right.
Mhm.
No time
So
for error.
again, that's Surviving the Shift. It's a Facebook group. Just go ahead and put it in your Facebook search bar and ask to join the group, Surviving the Shift. All right.
Mhm.
Bye, everyone. Make sure you leave some comments below. Go join the group. Bye
Bye,
bye.
y'all.